Hi Rachel. This video is in response to the questions that you emailed. I find that a video interview gives a more face-to-face, a more human voice to the answers that I'm going to provide. So sorry if you were looking for a written response. I know that you'll have to transcribe any answers that I do give, but I always feel I give a more genuine and heartfelt answer when it's a sort of digital face-to-face as opposed to in text. So let me get started. Your first question. When you started teaching, what were you most nervous about and most excited about? To give you a little background, I'm a foreign language teacher here in South Korea, and I've been so for the last almost 15 years. And I was most nervous and most excited about the same thing, meeting my students. As any teacher can feel, there's a period before you get into the classroom where you see your classroom, you decorate your classroom, you set up your classroom, you have your seating chart arranged, you have your anchor boards on the walls, and you really feel like the classroom is as set up as you can be. But you can never really put a face to a name and a name to a face until the first day of class. You might have talked to old teachers, or you might have heard things around the school about certain students, good or bad. But until you actually get in there and greet them hello and get them sat down in their seats, there's always that feeling of nervous excitement. For me, there was an obvious language barrier and culture barrier that I was also dealing with in terms of not speaking the language and not knowing what is expected of me as a foreigner in a classroom. But I think that translates to just about any teacher in any classroom anywhere in the world. Everyone's going to have that nervous and excited energy. So I was most nervous about that, meeting my students for the first time. And of course, it's like any first meeting, a blind date, or going to a big organizational meeting like a church or a social group. There's always that sense of anxiety. Am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? Will I fit in? But I found that students almost always are going to be as excited, if not more, to meet you than you are to meet them. And to try to give that sense of happy excitement back to students. Greet everyone with a smile. Greet everyone by their first name. Ask, what's your name? And call them back right away. I always find that when I'm first meeting students, or anybody really, repeating their name back and saying, it's nice to meet you, Brian. Hello, Brian, it's nice to meet you, Brian. Gets that instant connection and really makes students and I start off on the right foot. So yeah, excited about meeting everybody. Second question, what surprised you about teaching? What surprised me the most was the more I worked on myself, the better my students became. In the beginning of my teaching career, I thought that I had gotten a bad lot of students, or maybe I was given the worst class in the school, right? I thought that a lot of the problems that were arising in my classroom were created by my students. And I thought maybe he was a troublemaker, or this wasn't the right level for this student, or he or she had a problem at home, or the homeroom teacher wasn't disciplining students to my expectations. Right? I had kind of outwardly projected all of these problems that were happening in my classroom. And what surprised me most was after that class graduated, and I thought, oh, okay, I'm going to get a new fresh class to start with. This will solve all of my problems. What I found was the same students were actually, the different students were actually the same students, right? They might have had a different face and a different name, but all of those same personalities were there, all of the same problems remained, all of the same challenges and difficulties popped up again. And what surprised me is that there are no new students, just different versions of the same student. And what I realized was that in order for me to have better students, I had to become a better teacher. I always tell teachers this: you can have better students because you can become a better teacher. When I shifted the focus from students to myself, improving my classroom management, my disciplining, my lesson planning, my creativity, everything got better. It wasn't that the students changed, it was that I changed. And the most pleasantly surprising thing is that if you feel like there's something going wrong in your classroom, you can fix it because you can get better. You can figure out what the problem is and how you can solve it. And even if the problem is something that you can't solve, you can figure out ways to make that solution a little more friendly for both students and teacher, a little less difficult for everyone. Okay, next question. What was one resource that helped you? There was a book called Learning Teaching by Jim Shrivener. I believe that's his name. That book really transformed my whole classroom blueprint. The book breaks down every sort of teaching scenario and teaching technique and tip and situation that you will come across as a new teacher, and gives you a breakdown on why it happens, how to deal with it, solutions for different levels of classrooms, for different age groups, for different ability levels. That book is something I wish I would have been given on the first day of class. Learning Teaching. It's sort of this holy grail, or like gospel that I carry everywhere I go. It's still in my teaching backpack and I bring it everywhere I go because it's a resource I always share with new teachers that I meet, and old teachers as well. There's a sort of fundamental good best practice that's laid out in that book that even old teachers like myself should go back at the beginning of each school year and remember. Learning Teaching, that's what I would recommend. Next question. What would you tell your first year teacher self on the night before the first day of school? The same thing I tell new parents. Go to sleep earlier. Some people start school off on their summer schedule, and they go to sleep later and they wake up at an earlier time than they're used to. It seems simple enough. We tell our kids and we tell our students go to bed early, but we don't always follow that advice. I find the earlier I go to sleep, the better my day is the next day. If you go to sleep early, you wake up early. If you wake up early, you can prepare yourself. You can have breakfast, you can have your coffee, you can read the newspaper, you can go over your lesson plans, you can catch up on work, you can meditate, you can exercise. There's so many things that you can do to set yourself up for success throughout the day. I find that giving up the late nights for early mornings really made me a much better teacher, because when my students walk in the door, I have already been awake for 2, 3, 4 hours and feel like I can give 100%. If I go to sleep late and then try to wake up at the same time, I feel it, and so do my students. Not only am I less energetic, less active, less prepared, but I'm a mirror of that to my students. I might have a shorter temper, I might give snappier answers, I might not be as kind, as nice as I should be. So I find going to sleep earlier and changing your summer schedule back to a school schedule is as important for students as it is for a teacher. Go to sleep early. Of course, please share anything else that comes up when thinking about advice for first year teachers. Like I said, you can have better students because you can become a better teacher. One of the best ways that I did that was to get out of my classroom. Sometimes new and old teachers find themselves locked in their classroom. It's like a prison cell. They go in the door in the morning and they don't go out until they leave for the parking lot. One of the best things that I ever did was get out of my classroom. If I want to grade papers, I go out to the field, or I go out to our auditorium or our gymnasium or the soccer pitch, where I can find a little tree or to sit under, or a chair to sit on, or a bench to relax at and grade my papers. Not only does it put my face out in the school, but it puts students' faces on my mind. I get a chance to see my students outside of that academic setting. Even the change from the classroom hallway to the classroom door makes a big difference. You'll see your students in a different light when they're outside the classroom than when they're inside the classroom. So don't become a prisoner to your office desk chair. Get out and explore the school. eat lunch in the cafeteria, take a walk around the track when you have a free period. Bring your camera with you too, so you can snap some pictures with students, so you have memories of yourself at school and being around students in a role that's not always the teacher. You know, you can just be a more friendly adult in that setting. And I find that being part of the school community means more than just being in your teacher's desk. All right, and that's it for me. I hope these answers were helpful, not only to you, Rachel, but to any teacher who might be listening. All right, that's it. We're all finished. And as always, thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.